Afternoon all, Ollie back here again with Koi Pond update number 7. Much quicker than the last video, that's for sure. No massive sort of 4-month difference in between. We've now got the pond fully filled. I've noted a couple of issues which I was going to run you through, but let me just switch this around and this is now where we're at. So the view from this window is absolutely awesome, man. Those spin drifters working nicely. You see the old tornado in the background. Shows that hopefully I got my returns on properly. And it's a new net I had arrived today, which is like absolutely massive. I'm gonna get some clips to stick it up on there. Backy shower is running phenomenally now. It's absolutely lovely, quiet as anything. So the main issue that I've noticed is with the skimmers. They have a gasket which seals the wide mouth portions of the skimmer, and I'm pretty sure that they've been leaking. If you see down here, you can see here all the water that's somewhat coming down, although it does appear dry up here, so I'm a little bit confused. So this one actually might be a red herring, because I did actually have an issue where the water overflowed slightly on here when I turned the pumps off, because of how much or how close to the edge it is. If I go back around to this one here, this one is the one that I'm sure of is leaking. So if you see down here, you can see how wet the block work is, including the post there, and that is the entire way up, as you can see, and across there. So I'm not sure where you can see inside of the moving water, but there's the very small white bit sticking out sort of like over there, and that sort of runs all the way around, and that's basically the gasket which seals between this portion here and here. So what I'm going to have to do, I think, is I'm going to have to drain it down a little bit, dry it off around the area, silicone it, which sets in water absolutely fine, and then refill. Shower wise, as you can see here, all dripping down. If I open this up here, you see the spray bar on the go, which is fully covering all the media, which is lovely. Although I think I missed a couple of holes over here, which is a bit unfortunate, but I'll always fix that another time. I'm still happy with this. Now the amount of water that's coming down it that you can see there. There's a side shot of the flow on the go. Man, this pond is gorgeous. So fucking happy about it, honestly. There's been so much work that's gone into this, so much time, and energy and effort. And, you know, I've still got quite a lot to do, but we're getting there, man. Look at that. Oh. Beaming, absolutely beaming. The only thing is, I'm not entirely sure on this window, to be honest, because it warps the view quite a lot. You can see it's sort of really, I ignore, you know, it's getting quite bad reflection because of the light, but because of how the depth is from where the window is to where the shower is, it gives us a really warped view. So I think from stands from sort of afar, it's not too bad, but I definitely think the best sort of views are going to be from here. I've got, you know, temporary makeshift bench. I've got no fish in there, and you know, I've been spending hours just watching this. Honestly, it's so cool. Yeah, man. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain down the pond a bit, see if I can silicone around those gaskets, and start refilling. I noticed a slight issue with the moving bed in the Profi drum that I've got, and it has a 50 litre per minute pump, which doesn't seem quite enough for the amount of media that I've got in there. So just went out and grabbed me another EA70 pump, which is the same as what I'm using on the bottom drains here, which is working phenomenally. And yeah, so I will stop the video here a second, and I will be back shortly once I manage to drain the pond down a bit and start silicone. Catch you in a little bit. Oliver back again. I wish my pond bloody filled as quick as it drains. It took about 20 minutes for me to drain it down this much. So just below the skimmer lines here. So as I was saying before, we got the two skimmers which look a little bit, the blockwork's looking a bit damp. Now I just checked out the other one. I think I found the issue. This one, I'm not entirely sure as to whether this is actually a leaking skimmer or not, because as you can see, the water level stops there, right, and that's damp. But these blocks up here are dry, and it doesn't really make sense to me why the water would soak in down here from up here when this is all bone dry. But on the other one, I think I found the issue. I believe, might be wrong, but we'll see. So as you can see here, the blockwork here is, I mean, you can see the colour difference like there, where it's quite literally directly underneath the skimmer. And you know, I've checked all my pipe work. I mean, like around here it's all bone dry, you know, it hasn't been sort of overflowing. But I'll see if I can show you properly. It's quite hard. If you look in here, like above here, you can see that there's the actual fiberglass visible there, and it looks like the top coat hasn't quite gone all over it to waterproof it. And what I think is happening is that the water is then coming in, and what's happening is it's soaking slightly behind the fiberglass, and it's then naturally, you know, soaking out of the blocks. So there's actually two spots in total on this one here. One second. So I'm not sure how easily you can see this. It's quite difficult for me to show, but we've got, there's a bit there, like I literally quite, let me move my thumb. There's a bit like there where I can actually feel directly behind the fiberglass, and then you can see the exact same there. So I don't know as to whether it's the gaskets that sit between, or as to whether it's because of that. And I think the other skimmer is actually a red herring in regards to it leaking. But I'm going to do both. So I'm pretty much going to silicone all the way up, including on the gaskets there and there, and silicone all the way up there. Push it in, get it all nice and tight and sealed, and then I'll do the same thing on the other one. And hopefully that'll solve the issue. So I'll come back once I've done it, because it's going to be stupidly awkward to get to that. So I'll be back hopefully very soon. Back again. I cut out the skimmer guards so that I could get to have a sort of closer look inside and stuff. I'm not quite entirely sure as to if it is the baffles. I still think the one down the bottom was just sort of red herring from where some water had overflowed yesterday, and we just, you know, the blockwork was a bit damp from the ground. But the one on the side, the only thing that I could see that I potentially think it might have been is that there were a couple of gaps from fiberglass and top coat. The only way, you know, like what I showed sort of a minute ago, sort of poking around, and the only thing that I can think of really is that the water had been tracking through the gaps of that, and in turn it obviously been pushed out from the pressure of the water through the insulation behind the fiberglass, which is then soaking through the blockwork. So I've siliconed the absolute fuck out of it. I mean, you can't really notice the silicone, to be honest, especially once the water's running and stuff. It's a little disappointing if that actually is it, I did silicone up the baffles between the wide mouth portion and the skimmer anyway, just in case it was because of that, because I didn't really want to drain it back down again if it wasn't that, and it turns out to be this gap. I mean, the only way I can sort of describe it is almost like a little pocket of fiberglass, which was sort of like sticking upwards almost slightly. And then obviously water always finds the least path of resistance possible, and with the amount of water trying to gush through the skimmers and stuff, it had then been soaking through. So I'll show you the one on the back wall that I did, and then I showed you the side one after the fact. You know, it doesn't look too pretty, but once water's running in through there and stuff. So this one didn't really have any gaps in the fiberglass at all, other than some tiny one sort of around there. So I kind of gone a bit overkill with it, to be honest, and just siliconed the absolute shit out of it just to make sure. You know, I had to reseal this as well, and that'll sort of look a bit tidier once water's running through. Fortunately, the only CT one that I had was see-through, rather than black. Black probably would have been better, but I didn't have it, and I'd rather stop the issue immediately. Squeeze through here. Really good. Mate, call that COVID weight. So you can see here, I've basically just gone nuts with the silicone. The actual spot that I was on about in regards to that tiny little sort of pocket sticking up was actually in that sort of corner over there, where it's sort of jutting up slightly. And there's another little bit here. So I've just smeared on the silicone, and you know, I've gone right all the way up to the one sec, get my phone dangerously close to the water here. Basically gone up the entire lot. It will dry a nicer colour than what we see there currently. And you know, I have done the sort of baffle gap there as well, and on the other side there. So hopefully that solves the issue. It'll be a little bit disappointing if it is because of the fiberglass. You know, what can you do really? It's not really worth sort of asking them to come back out just to do that tiny little bit, to be honest. I mean, the silicone's going to last, well, for the lifetime of the pond, and if not, it'll be relatively easy to re-throw some stuff on there. So I figured I'd leave it for another hour or so, just to allow the sort of silicone to set and things, and then then I'll start filling again, which that amount there will probably take about another hour and a half or 2 hours to fill up. On a side note, with the Profi drum, it came with a yeah, this is my makeshift door, by the way. So it came with a 50 litre per hour pump for the bite over here, and I noticed that it wasn't bubbling that much, because I basically just got an EA 70 litre per minute pump, which I've now got sat inside of here. And I mean, like, you know, this isn't full, but this is now bubbling way better than what it was doing beforehand. You know, it needs more water really, and I get that, you know, it sort of floats on top for the first sort of week or two until you at least get some decent, until the K1 sort of starts sinking properly and things. But the 50 litres per hour just wasn't cutting it, I don't think. So I threw on a 70, which is the exact same as what I've got up there, which goes down to the bottom drains. And so I think that'll do a lot better. The drum itself is brilliant. It's not needed to clean itself at all, really, to be honest. I mean, I suppose there's perks of fresh water sort of being run through and stuff. But I tested it out a couple of times. Ideally, you really do need the lid on, because especially from this side that I'm standing on here, it gets you absolutely drenched. I did notice that, you know, there's a couple of leaves and stuff in there as well, and they don't seem to get caught by it. So I presume either they sort of need to break down, or or you need other sort of crap to sort of weigh them down to the actual drum filter itself, before it then sort of gets caught in the chute here, which then goes out to waste. So the things that I was talking about yesterday, which I said I'll talk about on here today, is we've got these two probes here, and you've then actually got this float switch here. So these two probes here is what controls the cleaning cycle on this. So I think it puts about 5 volts through the water, and when the connection is cut, that then initiates the cleaning cycle, because naturally the water would be higher on here than this side here, because the water's not getting through the drum as quick enough because it's dirty. So we have this gravity line here, as you can see here, and I mean, like, my water sort of sits here, sort of about 3 millimeters underneath the line. And so what I'll have to do is, once we actually start getting some fish and getting some, some muck through the water, and the drum itself actually needs to start cleaning itself, I'll be able to play around with these levels here to try and make, that sort of controls how often it'll be happening. So, if it turns out that the drum sort of is cleaning itself every 5 minutes because the levels there aren't quite enough, then, there's quite a lot of water that's sort of happening. So that's something that I'll have to start playing around with it later on. In regards to this float switch here, this actually isn't connected at the moment. It's actually here, and it's just these 2 wires here, and basically that sort of hooks into there. Now I'm not sure if you can see, but this one here, this black one on the right hand side, that leads through to this double switch over here, which is what my two return pumps are set to. So you always set this float switch much lower than these 2 probes here. Now what it does is, it sort of sits up and it's floating, but when that drops, what that'll do is that will then cut the return pumps off for 25 minutes. Which means, if for some reason a piece of pipework came loose, or, whatever other disastrous issue that's causing the water to be drained out of the pond rather than in, then it will cut them off until I can then rectify, which stops it from draining my pond, which, is obviously very useful to have. So that's pretty much today, and just gonna leave these for a little bit to sort of start curing a little bit. And you can see how hard my water is from the colour of the fiberglass there. That's literally where the water line was. I mean, I have tested the sort of GH, KH of the water, and it's ridiculous. It's like 18 or something like that. I need to do another test anyway, just to make sure. So yeah, that's pretty much all for me today. Went and had a look at some fish today. Some very nice ones around. Still too cold to buy some. Even I've got the itch to buy some as soon as I can. We're gonna have to wait a little while, I think. A couple more weeks to it's at least sort of like 10-11 degrees every day, and then we can start introducing some fish and go from there, really. So I'm probably not going to be updating with another video for at least like a couple of weeks. I'll probably do it when I introduce my first sort of fish, and can start playing around with the filter more. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will speak to you all again soon. See ya.